Hey, what's going on, you guys? So, today I'm doing something a little bit different. This is going to be my first ever Logan's Movie Rants. This is a new segment I'm starting on here where I'm not exactly reviewing movies, I'm just ranting about something related to movies that either upcoming movie news or something I just want to talk about. So that's going to be a new segment on here that I'm starting today. And this is a question that's been bothering me for a few weeks now and has only gotten more prevalent with time. Why does Disney suck in 2020? Now, for years, Disney's been getting backlash for a lack of creativity with all the sequels and live-action remakes they've been producing in recent years. And yes, I have noticed this too, but it didn't really dawn on me how lazy some of their films were getting until this year. Because even though last year there was two films that were produced by Disney that I thought were legitimately great, being Avengers Endgame and Aladdin, the rest being varying degrees of suck. And I thought, okay, 2020, we got some upcoming films that are going to be pretty good. And then some of them get pushed back, some get pushed all the way to next year, like Black Widow and Eternals, which I was actually looking forward to, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, as you might know. So, yeah, that pissed me off. But then we got Disney Plus and a bunch of new releases, and I thought, okay, some potential. A lot of these movies look like they could have potential, so let's see how these go. And Disney has not been impressive this year. If you see my reviews, I reviewed almost every single one of these reviews. The only two I have not reviewed that I've seen are Onward, because I saw that before I started this. I didn't start this until Scoob back in May, and Onward came out 2 months before that. And Upside Down Magic, which I only saw a few days ago, and that came out back in July, so it wouldn't have been prevalent at the time anyway, because it's a Disney Channel original, but yeah, we'll get to that. So, what I'm going to do here is analyze Disney movie by movie, to see where it all went wrong. So the first Disney film to come out this year was a Disney Channel original film called Zombies 2. I didn't watch this. I saw the first one a few years ago, back when it first came out. I was in a hotel room with my brother and sister. My parents had gone out for the night, and we didn't know what to do. And we saw them like, what the hell, let's give it a watch. Let's give it a shot. And it was pretty awful. Probably one of the worst Disney Channel original films I've ever seen. The acting was mediocre at best. The songs were not exactly impressive. The choreography wasn't that great. The story was lazy as shit. And it's way too late. The zombie trend died about 5 years ago, and it's like the same thing that happened with Angry Birds. It came out way too late. It should have come out 5 years earlier than it did. And this film looked just as awful, if not even worse, because now they're throwing in the werewolf trend, which is also a trend that died about 5-6 years ago. So I had no interest in seeing this. I will not see this. Don't ask. I'm not reviewing it even if I did watch it, but I refuse to watch it. I'm leaving it at that. And, just a quick heads up, these aren't going to be in-depth analysis. If you want to see my in-depth analysis on most of these movies, go watch my reviews of them, because most of these movies I review on here, these are just going to be quick, just kind of refresh your memory type of thing, while I try to figure out where Disney went wrong. So, the first major release, and the only theatrical release so far, is Pixar's Onward. After 4 years of releasing nothing but sequels, with Finding Dory, Incredibles 2, Cars 3, and Toy Story 4, Pixar finally releases their first original film since 2015's Inside Out. And I'm just going to preface this right now. All four of those sequels they've been kind of hit or miss. I really liked Finding Dory, and I thought Cars 3 was okay. I actually really like the first Cars. I hate the second Cars, but I really like the first one, because I kind of grew up with that movie. And 3 I thought was okay. I absolutely hated Incredibles 2, and I thought Toy Story 4 was trash. Probably one of the worst Pixar movies made. Like, down there with, like, Brave and The Good Dinosaur. And so I had high hopes for Onward, and it kind of fell short for me. I thought this was a perfectly fine movie, but not much beyond that. I thought the voice acting was fine, even though I think Barley would have been much better casted with Jack Black in the role, instead of Chris Pratt. Is that just me? Am I the only one who thinks that? Does anybody else think that Jack Black would have been just perfect for this role? I don't have a problem with Chris Pratt. I really like Chris Pratt, but I just think Black would have been perfect for this role. Something to think about. And But the problem with this is that it doesn't really utilize its world, and the last 20 minutes of this are stellar. Probably some of the best Pixar has ever put out. But 20 minutes of a film is not gonna save another hour and a half of mediocrity. So I'd say I can recommend this one, but don't expect the first two Toy Stories or Monsters Inc. or the first Incredibles or Finding Nemo. Don't expect a masterpiece here, but it's perfectly fine. Then, the third film Disney released this year was a little movie called Artemis Fowl. You all know my thoughts on this one, and honestly, I was too kind in my review. I think I remember seeing someone saying you were too kind in your review, and that person was right. Because this is one of those movies that the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. I didn't read the Artemis Fowl books, so this didn't, offend me like it did everybody else. But on a movie by itself, it is bad. Bad cinematography, bad acting, bad editing, horrible special effects, dull action sequences, and a plot where nothing really happens. I would say don't watch this film. If you have a Disney Plus subscription, it's free, but don't watch it. At all. Go check out my review if you want to see some actual... That was my second ever review, my first ever Disney review, so you can go ahead and check that out if you want more in-depth to it. So, yeah. Number 4 is Disney Channel's Upside Down Magic, which I just saw a few days ago. And I didn't have any... I wasn't gonna watch this one. I really wasn't. But I had nothing to do a few days ago, so I thought, what the hell, I'll give this a shot. Because I have the Disney Now app on my phone. Yes, I really have that. Thank God it was free. But, so I decided to watch it, so I'm like, okay, it's free, I don't have to, search into slang and find this. So I'm just like, I'll give it a shot. And it was probably the most dull film Disney Channel has put out. It rips off a bunch of their own properties, like Return to Halloween Town, especially Return to Halloween Town, and Sky High, and we'll get to another film that rips off Sky High quite a bit in a minute. And even stuff like Harry Potter as well. It rips off a bunch of other stuff, but without the charm to it. There was one the teacher of the Upside Down Magics, the kids whose powers are kind of wonky, and are basically our main characters. The teacher, who I believe the actor's name is Kyle Howard, I want to say. And he's actually legitimately funny. He was probably the only character that I liked in this. The villain was... I don't even know if I could call it a villain. It was more of a presence is a villain, because there isn't much of an actual villain here. A villain is just darkness. It's kind of like the Nothing from Neverending Story, but somehow just stupider. Because nothing is ever explained, and this is based on a children's book series, and they set up a sequel at the end of this, which I hope does not get made, because I'll end up watching that probably and putting a review of it in a couple years, if I'm still doing this in 2 years, which I probably will. This is easy stuff to make, but I'll be at college in 2 years, so by 2 years. So yeah, don't watch Upside Down Magic. It's boring, it's dull, has some very cringeworthy dialogue. The acting isn't great, with a few exceptions, and none of the characters are particularly likable outside of one or two. So, especially the headmistress is a piece of shit. And not even like, oh, she's a piece of shit at the beginning, and she learns to be a good person. No, the entire final battle, it's not even much of a fight. It's pretty pathetic, even for a Disney Channel film. She's just cowering in the corner. Step up and do something, little bitch. But, yeah, don't have much to say on that one. I'm not putting up a full review, because like I said, I don't have much to say, so, yeah, I'm gonna move on. Next up was Disney Plus's Magic Camp, and this was probably one of the most surprising films I saw all year. And that being, I didn't think it was that bad. It wasn't that good either, but I didn't hate it. I thought this was a perfectly decent film. It has some creativity to it, but it seems to rip off Camp Rock a lot, which as a kid I loved and watched all the time, but does not hold up in my teen years. It really doesn't. Last time I went back and watched it, I remember a lot of scenes where I was kind of like cringing or leaving the room because I knew it was going to happen. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not watching that scene. Hell no. And I'm just like, I'm outie. Yes, people still use that phrase. I know that was basically outdated by the time 1995 came around, but sue me. But yeah, this one was one of the most interesting films I saw And not because it was like, oh, I'm super invested in this, but it was because it was interesting, because the acting across the board was actually very good, and the magic tricks were extremely creative. You can tell they put a lot of time and effort into getting into training these kids in these magic tricks, and you can tell they brought some experts in to help them do these tricks, because these tricks are super creative and really cool to watch. Especially during the entire performance at the end, where all of them showcased their different talents. I thought that was actually a really cool scene. I thought it was really well done, it was well edited, and the magic tricks were very creative. The problem is, it's another standard, dull, generic film with a bunch of stereotypical characters, and we'll get to that more in a minute as well. And yeah, there's not much to say about that. Go watch my review of the rest of these. I have a review for the rest of these. I do. So go ahead and watch the review of this. So yeah. Next up was the one and only Ivan. I hated this one. This one was really bad. I expected something out of this film. I expected it to actually be okay. I've never read the book, but I was expecting something out of this film, and I didn't get anything. The acting was hit or miss, mostly miss. The CGI wasn't impressive, the jokes didn't land, and the message beats you on the head like a hammer. So, I did not enjoy this film at all. It was quite the slog. Nothing happens for the first hour, and then the last 30 minutes where stuff actually happens, it drags on. This movie's an hour and a half, and maybe needed about 45 minutes to tell the story. Yeah, it's one of those. Where, I don't know what the point of this was. I don't know what Disney was thinking with it. Did they really think this was going to be that big of a hit? It's called The One and Only Ivan. That's not going to be a hit. And it definitely wasn't a hit with me. I hated this film. It didn't offend me, again, because I didn't read the book, so it didn't offend me or anything, but man, I hated this. And we'll get to the film that did offend me in a minute. Next up was Phineas and Ferb, Candace Against the Universe. One of my favorite films of the year so far. Probably my second film of the year. And if you go back and watch all my reviews, you'll know what number one is, because there's only one movie that got a higher score than this. And I did do a review of it. And I'm a huge Phineas and Ferb fan. I watched it all the time as a kid, from the day it premiered to the day it ended. Well, not to the day it ended. To, like, the end of season 3, I think is when I stopped watching, because that's when I started to grow out of the Disney Channel a bit. And I got into more Disney XD stuff, and their live stuff like Star Wars Rebels and Lab Rats. I started watching that stuff more than I did the Disney Channel shows. And this is how a franchise should return. It pays homage to the originals without relying on nostalgia. This movie does not rely on nostalgia. Something Disney... I guess Disney took the hint from people complaining about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, relying too much on nostalgia bait. Because this one does not have that. This one is a very well-written, well-directed film with some excellent voice acting, some very good songs, too. Phineas and Ferb, their songs have always been very good. Like, way better than they deserve to be. And this film really kicked itself into high gear with these songs. I mean, some of them aren't top tier, and I do have to take points off for that one song where the stupid alien was flossing. I hate that. I want that to die. I didn't let it slide in Ralph Breaks the Internet. I certainly didn't let it slide in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Piece of shit. And I'm not letting it slide here. And the one downside of this film is Candace's character is so off. Her personality is way off, and she's extremely whiny at the beginning, even though she has nothing to complain about. Everything she's complaining about is her own damn fault. So she can't complain it's other people's fault when it's clearly hers. So yeah, but strongly recommend this film. If you're a Phineas and Ferb fan, you will love this to bits. If you're not a fan of Phineas and Ferb, I would still say give it a watch. It's still fun. Even without having a connection to these characters, they'll still make you care about the characters, which is actually really cool. And I like Doofenshmirtz and Perry's camaraderie in this, even though they don't have a ton of screen time together. And one thing I will say about this that I didn't mention in my review, that I don't know when this takes place. It's supposed to take place before the last episode, but for some reason, in the Night of the Living Pharmacist episode, which was one of the last episodes, everyone met Doofenshmirtz, and Buford and Doofenshmirtz had actually met before that, and Candace and Vanessa knew who each other are, because they knew each other during the end of that last season, but nobody seems to know Doofenshmirtz, and he doesn't seem to know them. So I'm not entirely sure when this is supposed to take place. but that's a minor issue, and I didn't even notice it until another review pointed it out, and then that's when I noticed, I'm like, oh, yeah, huh. But, yeah. Minor gripes, strongly recommend it. Mulan. Oh, I don't wanna. This was painful. Painful to watch, painful to film, painful to edit, and painful to watch after I finished editing it. This movie offended me. This was the one that offended me. Live-action remakes have not been good. The live-action remakes have not been good. There have been a few gems here and there. A few diamonds in the rough, if you will. Well, you probably shouldn't. Because Jungle Book was excellent. Aladdin's one of my favorite Disney film. Probably my favorite Disney animated film, and the live-action film definitely lived up to it. I loved that one. Beach Dragon was really good. I liked the remake of Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I really liked Christopher Robin. I thought the Lady and the Tramp remake was fine. But all the others have sucked. But this is the worst one. Actually, I take that back. Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, I still argue, are worse. Because they basically just do shot for shot, and they hope nobody would notice, and apparently most people didn't. So that offends me a bit more, but the fact is, this one just doesn't understand the original film at all. The acting is wrong, the direction is wrong, the message is very wrong, the editing is probably the worst I've ever seen in a major motion picture. I have never seen editing this bad. I've seen people shit on the editing in the first Amazing Spider-Man film. Watch this if you want to see some bad editing. And I complained about the editing in Artemis Fowl. I think most of that was due to the fact that most of the scenes were reshot. This film didn't have reshoots. What the hell is its excuse? I don't know what Nikki Caro was thinking when she directed this shit, but it is not well directed. The only thing that's halfway decent about this film is the cinematography, but it doesn't matter because the editing drags it down. The villain is boring, both of them are. The witch makes no sense. She flips sides just because she's so amazed how much of a girl boss Mulan is. I'm not kidding. I hate this movie with a fiery passion, and the longer I think about it, the more time I take since it came out, the more I've hated it. I gave it a D+ in my review. I think this actually deserves an F. This is the worst one this year. This is the worst Disney film this year. Whether it's the worst film this year? No, not quite. But I still think Eurovision takes that. But this is the worst Disney film of the year so far. But it did have some pretty stiff competition from Secret Society of Second-Born Royals, the most recent film to come out of Disney. I didn't expect much out of this. I really didn't. I expected something similar to Sky High, which is fucking awesome, by the way. I definitely recommend watching Sky High. But this is awful. Everything about this film is wrong. The CGI in this makes Upside Down Magic CGI look tolerable. I remember watching Upside Down Magic, I'm like, oh my god, these effects are gonna look terrible. But watching it only a few days after seeing Secret Society of Second-Born Royals, which is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen in my life, it actually didn't look that bad. The first time they had it was like a CGI fireball or something, like, well, compared to Secret Society, this isn't god-awful. This film is god-awful, though. The acting is hit or miss, mostly. The special effects are just miss. The story is a complete rip-off of Sky High without the charm or any decent writing to back it up. A few of the jokes landed, but more often than not, they just had me smacking my head like this, saying, shut up, move on. It's nothing but a slew of slanderous stereotypes and a bunch of cliche plot lines that you've seen a dozen times before that you just want to die. No, you don't want to die, but you want the cliches to die. I want to preface that right now. Movie isn't that bad, but yeah, this was an awful movie. I definitely don't recommend checking this one out. Avoid it like the plague. Just, what happened? I pray that Soul will be good. That's the last Disney film to come this year, I think. Well, probably more Disney Plus movies are coming, and, yeah, I probably won't watch those, but the last major release is going to be Pixar's Soul, and it better be a goddamn masterpiece to make up for the shit Disney Plus has been putting out. Because most of these god-awful films have been Disney+. How is the Disney Channel beating Disney+? How? I only saw one Disney Channel film, and it was beating half of the Disney Plus originals. 2 of which were supposed to come out in theaters. What were they thinking when they greenlighted these pieces of shit? Oh, I know. Money. Did they make that much money off of Mulan? No, it was a giant flop. Because it sucked, and apparently because a lot of Chinese people complained about it too. So, like, oh yeah, the Chinese market, yeah, that's where we're gonna get our boost. And that's where movie studios used to get their boost. Nope, that's where it tanked the most. Because they were so offended by it. I'm like, yeah, I can see why. So, yeah, Disney, can you please make some good films? I hope next year, I hope Black Widow's good. I hope Eternals is good. I hope Raya and the Last Dragon is good. I hope whatever Pixar puts out in the upcoming years is good. And, yeah, I don't have much else to say. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more videos just like this, and expect some more reviews coming up and more rants like this. And I'm having my September ranking coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. And I will see you all next time. Bye!